Salam Radio wishes all of our community Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. You're listening to the Property Wire Show on Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. I'm your host, Shaz Nawaz, and my co-host, Kieron, is off today. He's on a holiday, so you'll have to support me today because I'm the only person in the studio on the show. As always, feel free to get in touch with us. You can call on 01733 602 133, or you can text on 07411 191 062. And as always, the live streams are on, so you can comment on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Take your pick. As always, in the first half, we talk about mindset, and the second half, we'll be talking about property. I say we, it's only me here today, so I'll be talking about mindset and then property. And the second half, I'll be focusing predominantly on what can you do as a property beginner, because it's a question I get asked a lot, and when you're looking to do something new, you usually don't know where to start. So I'll try and clarify that for you as much as we can. But in the first half, it's Mindset Monday. So I'm going to share with you some thoughts on how to work on your mindset, because I think mindset really determines how well you do whatever you're looking to do. So the first thing I'd suggest is that you should always plan ahead. And I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, and we were talking about this particular point, and he said it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. And the point being is you've got to have a very clear short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan or strategy. Where strategy starts becoming a little bit corporate. And I know a lot of people out there sometimes struggle with what they actually want to achieve. And the challenge for you is, if you don't know what you want to achieve, then you'll never know when and if you get there. So you've got to do some heavy lifting here, I'm afraid, and think about what your priorities are, how you want your life to look like, how you want your business to look like, what things you'd like spending time on. And so if you can't start with the long term, because people usually struggle with 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, just work on your short term in terms of break it down into days, weeks, months, quarters, years, whatever works for you. But spend some time on planning. And this isn't an exercise which you can fulfill by sitting down for an hour or half a day. This takes quite a bit of time, by the way. So I'd suggest that you start on it, then leave it for a day or two or three, then go back to it. It's an iterative process, which is a bit like water. Okay, it's fluid, it's going to move around, it's going to change over time. And that matters not, to be honest with you, because what's really important is you have something to aim towards, and only you can decide what that is to be. The second thing is keep your mind fit. A lot of people talk about physical fitness, which is obviously important, but at the same time, your mental fitness is extremely important, both in terms of your mental health, which I'm clearly not qualified to talk about, but you should exercise your mind, and I'm going to share with you some tips which are going to help you with that very shortly. The third one is very, very important, and I've personally struggled with this in the past, and through practice and training and development, I've gotten better with this, and that is that you've got to learn to not listen to your critics, and you've got to decide what you feel is best and decide what you think needs to be done, and importantly, decide on the priority of those things. And a lot of people talk about constructive criticism, and yes, that is applicable, but I guess it depends on who's giving you the advice stroke criticism or feedback, call it what you like, because as with anything, when we're looking at information, research, statistics, we look at the source, and it's important you look at the source when somebody's giving you critical or constructive criticism, because they may have their own agenda or their own preferences, or there are other motivations that may be driving them. Could be envy, could be ego, could be fear, could be jealousy, could be desire, could be something else, could be validation, and many, many other reasons, by the way. So just because somebody gives you some piece of advice or criticism, it doesn't mean that you need to own that. It doesn't mean you need to follow it. Quite frankly, I was taught quite a while back that you need to be immune to criticism, and that served me pretty well, because the higher up that you go in terms of what you're looking to achieve, the more you'll find that you have critics, and you need to be okay with that under your own skin. And the way you're okay with that is you've got to believe in what you're doing, and most importantly, you've got to have that plan, which is the first thing that I shared with you, and be very clear on your own objectives and your values and your purpose. And when you've got clarity on those things, then you're less likely to be upset when somebody criticizes you. You're more likely to ignore it. You're more likely to look at it from a different light. And by the way, I'm not here saying that we shouldn't fully deconstruct constructive criticism. Absolutely do it. But be sure that you're doing it or giving it time and energy, because somebody who you value, respect, is giving that to you. You don't have to necessarily like them. I mean, so often I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, where people have debates on Facebook, and somebody may comment who perhaps you don't like. But if you respect them as a credible person, you might take their comments or thoughts into consideration. Consideration, I feel and believe, is the important word there, because you then, once you consider something, decide whether it's worthy of further attention or whether you need to discard it. Yeah, and all too often, and I'm sure we've all been victims of this, I know I have, is somebody criticizes us, and we spend the next number of hours, days, weeks pondering over that. It concerns us. We might even talk to other people. It affects our mental health, mental ability, our sleep, our food, our eating pattern, our sleeping pattern, the way that we behave with others, and all of that upsetting really isn't worth it, in my view. So I think it's important that you tune in to who's giving you critical information, because it's quite easy for anyone to say, oh, I'm giving you constructive advice or feedback or constructive criticism. That's sometimes true. Other times, it's being used as an excuse to possibly beat you up or for another agenda. So what somebody says and how you interpret it, by the way, are two very different things. And you interpret it using your own filter. Have an open mindset, and obviously take feedback, but don't take literally what anybody and everybody says to you, because otherwise you spend forever worrying about what they've said to you. The next one is to build on high or higher ground. And this has many different applications and applies to one in very different ways. But I think importantly, this links in with the principle of association. And I think you should care a lot about who you keep company with, both in terms of people giving you advice, but also the old or well-known principle of that, where the average of the 5 people we most associate with. So if you associate with people who are always negative, you're going to end up being negative. If you associate with people who always talk about others, you'll probably at some point fall foul of doing the same. So I think it's important that you associate and keep company with the people who have the values that you have, the people that something that you're looking to achieve. So if we're talking about property, if you're looking to become a property investor or looking to grow your property portfolio, then associate with people who are perhaps doing things differently to you, and possibly doing things in a bigger and better way. And it's not always about bigger and better, by the way. It could just be people doing things differently that you're looking to learn. And sometimes it's difficult, and I get it, by the way, to disassociate yourself from people who you know really well. I'm not saying cut off from the entire world, cut off from your friends from nursery or primary school or secondary school or college or university or former work colleagues. Absolutely not. But if they're not on the same wavelength as you are in terms of what you're looking to achieve, then spending time with them might not be the best thing to do. And as hard as that may be for you and me and others, if you're really focused on your own plan and you have a clear purpose, then sometimes you just got to let go of certain things, and that includes letting go of people. And if you don't, then sometimes people will hold you back. But also, building on higher ground means being clear on your own philosophy in terms of what you stand for, what you see as important, what you see as your purpose here, as your legacy, what you're looking to achieve, how you portray yourself in terms of the influence that you have on others, the impact that you want to make and leave on others. And that, again, it is your personal philosophy, and obviously you need to work that out and build on it, because you're unique. As Oscar Wilde said, be yourself, because everybody else is already taken. So again, I can't determine that for you. What I can share with you is how either I've done it or I've seen other people do it. Moving on from that, obviously there are certain mindset hacks or things that I use, which I think have helped me a lot, and I'm happy to obviously to share those with you. But in terms of mindset, I think there are three types of mindset which you ought to look at and adopt. One is abundance mindset. Second one is positive mindset. And the third and most important one in my mind is growth mindset. So Kieron and I at a forthcoming episode will focus on all three of these and share our thoughts. But for now, if you want to just research some of those for your own benefit, I think that would be useful. I think it's really important for you to learn from your own mistakes, but at the same time, don't live in the past. Because all of us are guilty sometimes of spending way too much time thinking about the past. You want to focus on things you can change, you can improve, you can implement. And thinking too much and beating yourself up about the past isn't going to do that for you at all. And remember, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes every single day, more than one. And my personal belief is, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is if you haven't made mistakes, you haven't lived. So it's a natural thing to do. And when you're trying things and you're doing different things, you're going to make mistakes. That sometimes people are going to let you down. Sometimes you're going to let people down. Sometimes you're going to win. Sometimes you're going to lose, depending on whether you see things as a win and a loss. But remember, every loss can be turned into a win in the long term, so long as you take lessons from it, and so you learn from it and you implement change. I mean, I've got story after story after story of mistakes that I've made, and I carry on making, by the way, different ones, but not the same ones, because I think the first time you make a mistake, okay, it could be because you weren't aware, you didn't know about it, possibly ignorance, possibly you're trying something new. But to repeat the same mistake again and again and again, that means you're not learning from those mistakes. And I think how you handle your mistakes or your losses really determines your wins. So learn to be okay with it. Sometimes it's okay not to be okay too, and that's fine. You can't always be at your best and always smiling and cheerful, because we're human beings. Different things impact us in different ways, and we all deal with happiness, grief, joy, success, loss in different ways. And you just need to get to know yourself better and be okay with all that. Secondly, I'm a big fan of setting big goals, but I know some people sometimes maybe struggle with that or have a different view. So if you're one of those people like me, you like setting big goals, go for it, obviously. But with that, you can then break that big goal into smaller goals. Or if you don't like setting big goals because it worries you, you're overwhelmed, you've got fear, apprehensive, you lack the confidence, whatever the reason might be, by the way, because I can't cover every single reason for you, because that would be a very long list, and even then I'd miss some off. But learn to set really small goals to start off with and break them down into tasks and activities. And if you have a team around you, obviously you can delegate some of those. Very importantly, set deadlines. Deadlines are going to help you to get to do what you want to do quicker and better than anything else. And then with those deadlines, you've got to set time aside. No point making a list of 54 different things you're going to do, let's say in the next month or next quarter, and then not setting time aside, and the quarter, or the month finishes and the quarter finishes, because time goes by very, very quickly. And then you realize you've not done most of the stuff, because then you're training yourself to accept not doing stuff on time, to accept being mediocre, to accept not being disciplined, and that then is a slippery slope. So set those goals, break them down into activities and tasks. If you've got a team around you, you can delegate those. Set clear deadlines which you ought to meet, and then set time aside to make sure you can work towards those deadlines. But I think also importantly is be good to yourself. So don't accept failure as an excuse, but be good to yourself. And every now and then things slip. I don't think there's many people around who achieve every single task, every single time, on time. There may be some, but most of us sometimes do miss deadlines. Some of us always miss deadlines, and there's a lot of us in between. So if you're missing a deadline, or there's more to it than you thought, that's okay. That happens. But at least you have a clear target and work towards it. And remember, I think you just got to be okay, and you got to understand that you just got to roll with the punches and the setbacks, and just be flexible with that, because we all have setbacks. If every business plan succeeded, most of us, or especially those who make business plans, would be in a very different place. And you just got to learn to expect the unexpected. Kieron and I talked last week about the positive impact of negative preparation, where we talked about think about all the things that could go wrong, and then plan and prepare for them, so that if they happen, or when they happen, you've thought about it, you have some kind of a plan, so you're not caught off guard. That's pretty important stuff. Most of us will have an excellent idea, or it's the next shiny object syndrome, and we're just going down a particular garden path, and we don't sometimes slow down and think through things. Nothing wrong with going fast, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with going slow. Your pace, your speed is your speed, and you should determine that and be comfortable with it, because it's your choice. Something which I find very useful, which helps me a lot, is spend a certain amount of time every day doing things just to clear your mind. And what I usually do is spend 15 minutes a day on finding inspiration and tranquility. And again, for different people, this is going to be very different. So for some, it's meditation or some other form of spirituality. If that's for you, then you can do that. Some do it in the morning, some do it last thing at night. You need to find a time that works for you, because we have this kind of debate of, is it better to be part of the 5 a.m. club, or is it better to start work in the afternoon or evenings? And again, Kieron and I have talked about this in the past. It's whatever works for you. You have a particular modus operandi. Just work with that. But alongside meditation or spirituality, and if that's not for you, then read quotes if that helps you. Read books, watch videos. There's other forms of personal development, like listening to audiobooks, listening to other people share information with you. And every day before you go to bed, I think it's really important that you're grateful. Grateful to the people around you, grateful to the people who touched you, who you've met, your family members, those who've influenced you, those who support you, your team members. And I think being grateful is really important. And obviously, if you believe in God or a higher being, then absolutely to be grateful to God too. But and what a lot of people don't do, and they mean to do it, by the way, and it's good intentions, is send thank you notes and emails and messages to people who you appreciate. Because we just get busy in being so busy, we forget to thank people who've gone out of their way or who've done something that we like. Just a random act of kindness. So it's important. If you allocate, so I allocate 15 minutes a day to these things. For you, it might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, it might be longer. But doing some of these things is going to set you up and put you in a positive frame of mind. Doing it in the morning helps me, because then it puts me in that positive frame of mind, and then obviously I can move forward in the day. And the last couple of things before we go towards the break is that you want to avoid negative thinking. I've talked about, like I said on a previous episode, about the positive of impact of negative thinking in terms of planning. But generally speaking, you want to avoid negative thinking, negative talk, especially to yourself, because thoughts become things. And as Earl Nightingale put it, we become what we think about most. Now, I might be odd, by the way, and I might be the only person who talks to myself. But if you're a bit like me and you talk to yourself, then share positive thoughts with yourself. Be positive about the future. Be positive about the people around you. And it's important that you reward yourself, compliment yourself, encourage yourself, be nice to yourself, and respect yourself. Because if you're not good to yourself, then nobody else is going to be good to you. And then do those things to other people too. Because when you share goodness, goodness comes back to you. And when you share negative energy, usually negative things come back to you. So it's really important that you aren't your worst enemy, because as you move forward in life and you become more successful in the world of property or whatever else that you may be doing, you'll have a lot of people around you who aren't going to like you. I say a lot because the higher up the ladder you go in terms of however you class success, the more that you're going to find that people don't like you, don't respect you as much, for their own reasons, by the way. And you got to be okay with that. That's just the way it is. Like I said, it could be 101 different reasons, from the way that you dress, the way that you talk, maybe the part of the community that you belong to, your faith, your personal belief, to your outward success. So, and again, you need to be okay with that. We've got here a question from somebody, which is, what are the key factors one should consider when evaluating potential property investment opportunity? And that's a question from Fiaz. So, Assalamu alaikum, Fiaz, and thank you very much for asking that question. I will cover that for you in the second half when I focus on property. But that's a good question, because sometimes people don't know what to look at. So I'll cover that for you after the break. But just to round off, the first part is you need to be okay with not being okay. And I think it's important every day. And there's some people who keep journals and diaries and memoirs. But I think it's important that before you go to bed every night, analyze how the day went. Think about the mistakes you made. Think about the lessons that you learned from those mistakes. And it's cathartic, and it just helps you bury stuff which a lot of people carry around with them. It's called baggage. And that baggage, if you're carrying a lot of baggage, are you going to move fast or slow? You're going to move slow. Are you going to be positive or negative? You're going to be negative. Are you going to be good to yourself or are you going to be bad to yourself? You're most likely going to be bad to yourself and maybe to others as well. So you just got to, as you're moving down that corridor of life, you just got to close those doors around you once you've decided to move on. And all of these things might seem easy to do. They're not. They're difficult. But by difficult, I mean when you're implementing them at the start, they are challenging and they can be difficult. But once they become habit, then they are easier to do. So ponder and look at these things, and if any of these resonate with you, then you can reflect on them and then you can put them into action. And we're going towards a break now, so because the first half's gone really quick, stay with me for the second half, where I'll talk about all things property, especially for property beginners. See you shortly.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
This Ramadan, give in the name of Allah. Begin with Bismillah and help the most needy around the world. Help ensure that vulnerable orphan children have the best start to life. Help a vulnerable family rebuild their lives by building them a strong, safe and protective shelter. Provide clean water to some of the world's most impoverished communities. Provide iftar meals to help tackle hunger. To donate, visit us on www.childrenofadam.org or contact Children of Adam on 0300 321 0032.
Could you spare a few hours each month to provide support to people who are going through tough times? If so, Peterborough Samaritans are looking for volunteers who are empathetic and open-minded, and we'd love to hear from you. We run regular information sessions where you can find out more about what it means to volunteer for Samaritans. If you are at least 18 years of age and would like to know more, please email volunteer@peterboroughsamaritans.org.
2020 World Buffet is inspired by the best foods from around the world. See our teppanyaki chefs grill your food to order, or choose delicious Indian, Italian, Chinese, Mexican dishes and British favourites, all halal. 2020 World Buffet offers you unlimited food at a set price. Open 7 days for lunch and dinner. Catering, wedding and party services available too. Call 01733 566 320 or visit 2020buffet.co.uk. 2020 World Buffet, 35 New Road, Peterborough, PE1 1FJ.
Where can you get high quality and low prices? Amar Food Store and Halal Meat in Lincoln Road, Triangle is the place to go. Pay us a visit and take advantage of our special offers and great range of products on groceries, vegetables, fruits and halal meat. Also send money to Pakistan absolutely free. We have all top brands at special offers, offer free customer parking and provide a free local delivery service. Amar Food Store and Halal Meat, 613B Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call us on 01733 687 374. High in quality, low in prices.
Worried your tenants could stop paying their rent during this cost of living crisis? Next Move Estate and Letting Agents are offering landlords 12 months rent in advance. You'll get your rent paid for the whole year in advance. No strings attached. Too good to be true? It really is that simple. So get in touch with us today for this extremely limited offer. Call Next Move now on 01733 641 642 to find out how we can help.
You could be driving, you might be cooking, you could even be working. But whatever you're doing, you're also listening to Salam Radio. And if you're in business, your potential new customers could be listening too. So talk to them and let them know what you have to offer. Advertising on Salam Radio is affordable and effective. And by doing so, you're also supporting this valuable and important voice within the community. Right now, there are special Ramadan advertising offers available too. Call 07866 319 679 or find Salam Radio online and across social media.
community, Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Property Wise Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. There's some people who've got in touch, but if you want to get in touch, you can call on 01733 602 133, or you can text on 07411 191 062. Or best of all, if you're following any of their live streams, you can comment on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. In the first half, I talked about mindset and gave you some practical tips. Second half, as always, is focused on property. And very important to say this is that mindset is a huge factor in the world of property in terms of being able to achieve success. So don't discount mindset, whatever you do. That's why we talk about it every single week on the show, because it probably has the single biggest impact on your success, both in personal life and in business life. I had a couple of questions. First one from Fiaz Rasool. Fiaz, thank you very much for always engaging and asking questions. And his question is, what are the key factors you consider when evaluating a potential property investment? And linked with that, he's asking, what are the key considerations you take into account when analysing the potential cash flow and return on investment of a property deal? So thank you for those two questions, Fiaz, and I hope you're keeping well. I mainly focus on buying commercial property and converting it into flats and apartments. I'm also at the moment doing a new build where we're building 49 houses in Lincolnshire, and that is a slightly different type of project to what we normally do. But I'll focus the question, if I may, Fiaz, on commercial conversions, because there are different property strategies, and if you've been listening to different episodes, we've covered quite a few of those, and there are maybe one or two left which Kieron and I will cover. But in terms of commercial conversions, what I'm first of all looking at, obviously, is the purchase price. Because I think if you buy wrong or you pay too much for a property, then you're on the back foot, and then you're going to try and make up for it, and it's going to be difficult. In saying that, I think it's really important, Fiaz, that if you're paying a lot for a property or you're overpaying for it, and it's in an area of demand, then I can tell you, if you overpay for it, you're not going to lose out. Because where there's a huge amount of demand, okay, the price is going to be higher and there'll be more competition. But generally speaking, there'll always be demand in that area for those type of properties. So I'm not averse or afraid of overpaying for a property. But generally speaking, I think it's the accountant in me, if I'm being frank, in the sense that the accountant in me always says, find a deal and I guess I'm always looking for a really good deal. But sometimes I have paid more for a property than I ought to, and in the long run, it served me well. Other occasions, I've tried to negotiate and bought something which pretty much is a lemon. And if you don't know what a lemon is, just look online in terms of when people are buying cars, what happens when they buy a lemon. But so first of all, I'll look at the purchase price, then I will do my own calculations in terms of the build cost. And if you don't have experience of that, you can obviously talk to people who do Fiaz, or talk to a quantity surveyor. They'll give you a good handle on cost. And then I'll look at the end value once everything's done. Again, you can just go on Zoopla or Rightmove, and if you're, let's say, buying or creating 2-bedroom flats in a particular area, look at the going price for those, and you'll be able to quickly figure out the value of your own property in that particular area. And then from the end value, obviously, I take off the build cost, the purchase price, all of the costs that are associated. I'll look at the margin. So am I making a margin? Because if I'm not, then I'm better off buying a property that's ready made, as in already built, it's there. So if it's going to cost you more to either buy land or to buy a commercial property, and then you're going to spend money on doing it up, if all that put together is going to cost you more than buying something which is already there, why would you want to go through the headache? And I see these people doing a lot, Fiaz. When they buy something, they spend money on it, and sometimes things get out of hand, by the way, but sometimes they end up, and it's a combination. There's never one thing. So there's quite a few moving parts. Sometimes they'll end up paying a bit too much for it. Then they'll end up taking too long to fix it, improve it, refurbish it, develop it. Then they'll spend too much money on it because things get out of hand, and whether it's inflation or other things into play. Okay, so that costs them. Then they'll have, let's say, bank funding or funding from elsewhere. So every day and week and month, the interest is accruing. So all of those put together mean that they've spent too much money on that particular project. And they could have bought something similar for a lot less. So why go through all that pain and the blood and sweat, and toil and tears when you could have got something ready-made? Yeah, there's a whole debate here, an argument about obviously learning, and that's fine too, by the way. But if you're learning, then that's very different to looking to make some kind of a margin or gain. And if you want to learn stuff, then you've got to cut your teeth on something smaller as opposed to doing something bigger, if that makes sense. So once I've done that and I've looked at the margin, then I'm looking at rental income. So if I keep these properties once I've developed them, usually flats and apartments, what's the rental income and what's the monthly cash flow and the profit I'm looking to make? And I think a lot of people, when they're new, make this mistake about thinking about capital appreciation. Or this property, okay, was flats in this particular area 15 years ago, let's say, were £50,000. Today, they're £100,000. So in the next 10, 15 years' time, they're going to be £150,000 or whatever. I'm going to make my money then. Well, you've tied up some of your money in that property, so you ought to look at getting some kind of a return and not just focusing on capital appreciation. That's just a bonus. So I would look at the positive cash flow, Fiaz, and then I look at return on my capital employed. What kind of a return am I getting on the money that I've invested? Very importantly, when I'm looking to buy property, I look at how can I add value. Because when you're adding value to the property, that's when you're making the real big gain. And linked with that, also, when you're looking to buy properties, you want to spend a lot of time researching and try and buy properties which are below market value. Because what you'll find is that different people sell for different reasons. And some people have a bigger motivation to sell than others. So just 2 or 3 examples. Let's say a property is in probate because somebody's parents or a parent has passed away, the second parents passed away, and then they get the property and they're not keen on looking after the property. They don't want to keep it, they want to sell it. They're more motivated to sell that property than somebody who either lives in a property and is looking to sell it, or somebody who just wants to sell a property because they're looking to do something else. Secondly, a couple could be going through a divorce, for example, so they'll be more motivated to sell. Thirdly, there could be, let's say, some siblings who own a property together and they're looking to sell, or they've fallen out. Fourth, people looking to emigrate and move to a different country or a different area, or they're moving jobs into a different area, so they're looking to sell. So these are some of the reasons why people might be looking to sell quickly, so they're more likely to do a deal. Another one could be that they've not been able to keep up their mortgage repayments, and the house might be on the brink of being repossessed, so they just want to quickly sell. So you've got to find that reason for why somebody's looking to sell, and then I'm not saying you take advantage of them at all, but you work out, okay, what it's worth for you to buy that property quickly. Because when somebody's selling to you below market value, they want the money quickly. Now, if you're going to stamp up that money in a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, which is quicker than most people, by the way, then for going that extra mile and that headache and raising those funds, which might cost you more, by the way, if you haven't got them available in your bank account, which most people don't, or you're going to have to borrow them from family, friends elsewhere, then for doing that extra work, you ought to get a better deal. So below market value and adding value at the end, Fiaz, those two help you have a bigger and better gain. Then I also look at the money that I've invested at the start. Okay, what's my real return on investment? Because if I've invested, let's say, £50,000, and that money stays in a project over 18 months, that return is going to be different. If I'm, let's say, I've got a 15% return, that 15% is going to be different to if I get a 15% return on the £50,000 over a longer period of time. So I'm looking at my real rate of return. But with all of that, what I really look at is once I've done a property project, am I going to get all of my money back at the end? So if you're looking to refinance or sell, you want to make sure that there's a margin there so you make a profit. If you're looking to just simply refinance or remortgage, then you're just working out, or you're starting from the end and working backwards, and making sure that when the project's done, that when you refinance up to 75%, you get all your money back. So as an example, you bought a property for £100,000, you spent £100,000 doing it up, and let's say there's other costs involved of £100,000. So altogether, it's cost you £300,000 in total. Now, if that property is worth £400,000, you can then refinance it up to 75% as a buy-to-let, and 75% of 400,000 gives you the 300,000 Fiaz. So you get all your money back, including whatever you've invested. Now you're sat on that property for free. Yes, you've got monthly repayments to make, but that's going to be covered by your rental income and your cash flow, and that should leave you something as disposable income or profit at the end of every single month. Now, of course, if you're not comfortable with paying interest, then you either need to sell those properties or have other parties who go share some of those costs with you or invest with you at the end, and then they get a share of the profits. And that's something, obviously, which is going to be personal to you, and you need to think about that. But those are the things that I look at. So below market value, can I add value? Am I going to be able to do the job in a streamlined way? And at the end, can I get all my money back? Those are my indicators, and a lot of different people have different indicators, by the way, Fiaz. So I hope you found that useful. Faisal, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for participating and listening, as you always do. And your question is, do I keep a written journal summary for each day? And I hope you won't be surprised to hear that the answer is yes. So there's different types of journals you can just buy them online, and I keep one which helps me do 3 or 4 different things. Before I go home every night, I write on there the things that I've achieved, the things that I'm grateful for, anything that I did which I can learn from, and then I map out the key tasks for the next day. I only ever put 3 things on there, first, but on some of the journals you can put more than 3. I put 3 on there, so that when I go to bed, I can just kind of think about what I need to do tomorrow. The next day, I'll wake up and have those 3 tasks, and I'll focus on those first before I do anything else. And that helps me get things done. Now, some of those things might change, by the way, and you might have the 3 things you want to do, and then you get into work, and a work colleague or says something to you in terms of something important and urgent, or somebody calls you or emails you, and you need to put something else as a priority, and that's okay. It's your activity and your tasks. You do them as you see fit, but more often than not, if you want to totally focus on those, then it's better not to obviously take phone calls or open your emails before you do those tasks. Obviously, avoiding colleagues, especially if you're working in an office, isn't easy, but you can always say, the first hour and a half, 2 hours, however long it takes you, just book that out and say, I'm not available. But I found this whole process, Faisal, very, very helpful. And initially, when people shared it with me, I think, what's the point of spending 5, 10, 15 minutes writing stuff down? What's it going to do for me? I can do that, spend that time watching something else, listening to an audiobook, whatever else. This just seems arduous and hard work, and I can't see the benefit. But once you do it over a sustained period, I don't mean years, by the way, I'm talking about days, weeks and months, you're going to see it helps you gain clarity. It helps you to really see the progress you've made, because we all forget, to some extent, where we started from, and the journey that we've taken and how well we've all done. No matter who you are, what you're doing, everybody has achieved something worthy of attention, notice, to be proud of. And sometimes we forget that. So looking back to that journal, Professor, sometimes when the going's tough and things aren't working your way and you're beating yourself up, or somebody's giving you some critical feedback, as I talked about in the first half of the show, you just open that up and look at all the things that you're grateful for, which you've listed on there. And that's going to cheer you up, because sometimes you need that. Sometimes you don't want to talk to somebody else about your situation. So you've just got yourself. And that's when that helps you. Other times you think, you're feeling down, you haven't got the confidence, or you're feeling lazy, or you think, I can't get stuff down. You just go through one of those kind of peak and trough moments. Okay, and definitely isn't a peak because you're feeling down. And you look at that and think, well, look over the last week, month, 3 months, longer period of the things that I've achieved and I've done. And I can do this too. So the journal not only helps you to plan your day forward, to be grateful, to be thankful, and to learn from whatever you've done in that day, but it also helps you to lift you up, to gain confidence, to share with other people things that you've done which have worked well for you. So I think keeping a daily journal is really, really useful, and you can break it down to whatever you want. You could just have a book where you just write down things which you're grateful for, or things that you've done, or lessons you've learned, or just go online or buy a book of quotes or whatever and write down a quote, okay, and think, how can I implement this today in my life? Or if you follow a particular faith here, obviously we've got on Salam Radio, obviously most of the listeners, not all, but a majority of the listeners are Muslim. So you, in the morning or at whatever point, once you've prayed your namaz, your salah, if you want to read hadith or the Quran, then you can say, what can I implement from this today? If you follow a different faith, then you can obviously read that holy book. And if you don't follow any faith whatsoever, then do something else which you take inspiration from. Maybe you've got somebody who you look up to, or you've got a personal philosophy that you follow. But keeping a journal, First, I think is a very good idea. I think it's going to help you, knowing you as I do. Another question from Faisal, Fiaz. And Fiaz says, what is your exit strategy for property investments, and how do you decide when to sell or divest from a property? Exit strategy is a good one, Fiaz, and again, it's different for different people. My one, generally speaking, is I'm a bit of a hoarder. So I want to try and keep hold of as much as I can. And then at some point, and this is a point that I'm going through right now, by the way, for some of my properties, is I'm thinking, am I getting the best return possible? And if the answer is no, which it is sometimes, by the way, because I've been doing this for quite a while, and what I know today isn't what I knew 10 or 12 years ago. So some of those things that I bought probably weren't good investments looking back now. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. So then I'll think about, okay, if I sell those, what are the tax consequences? Once I've paid off the tax, how much have I got left? And can I make that money work harder for me and in a much better way? So generally my exit strategy is to hold on to things and at some point in the future, obviously, to then pass those on to the next generation alongside doing some other things, which I won't talk about today, but I might talk about some other point for us in terms of legacy planning and helping others and doing good for something that you believe in, whether it's for the local community or elsewhere. And in terms of the second part, and by the way, some people have a strategy where they just sell all the time. They look at a gain. So generally speaking, these are people who flip property or who do bigger deals, and they just want to make their profit and then move on to the next deal. And I guess it just depends on what you think works best for you. In terms of the second part of your question is, how do I decide when to sell or divest? Selling, like I said to you, isn't something that I do. I'll only do it every now and then when I think, can I get a better return elsewhere on my capital. In terms of divesting from property, what I generally do is I divest within property. So I look at different strategies and then kind of put my money into one or two or three different strategies. Generally speaking, I've got what is reasonably well known in the world of property, a 70-20-10. So 70% of my money or time, effort, enthusiasm, energy goes into one particular strategy, 20% into the next one, 10% into the one after. Other than that, in terms of investment, I focus quite a bit on different types of businesses. So I've got 3 or 4 different businesses for us that I focus on. More recently, at the back end of last year, I established something in Pakistan. I'm only sharing this, by the way, because you've asked the question, in Pakistan. So I'm kind of focusing there. I'm also looking at property there. So I'll hopefully share with you some of the things that are happening over there, which we can implement in the UK, because these things are transferable, which will help. So I've got that there. Then I've also got some stuff in the stock market, because that helps me diversify. Last week, if you listen to the show, we had Kevin Whelan, who's an economist and advises people on finances. He was talking about gold bullion. That's something that I've been interested in. So I look at that. So those are the things that I'm investing or sometimes divesting in. But the majority of my investments, Fiaz, tend to be in business and in the world of property. And then Fiaz says, keep up the good work, brother. Great show as always, Fiaz. The show is only as good as the questions I get asked by wonderful people like you and the feedback that I get, because Kieron and I set this show up really, obviously thanks to the Salam Radio leadership and management team who gave us the opportunity, but we used to really share information with people, not just to share information, but to share actionable steps that people can take away. And it gives Kieron and me much joy when somebody stops us on the road or sends us a message on WhatsApp or on social media and says, that one thing that you shared, I was stuck with that for days and weeks and months, and you've kind of unlocked it, or you've shared with me how I can do things differently. So Piaz, as long as we're kind of sharing positive information with you, I'm a happy chap. Now, focusing on, for the time that we have left, and obviously thank you very much to the people who've asked questions today, as always, we're looking at what actionable steps does a beginner need to take. So I'm going to talk you through these, and you can make a note or listen back to the show, and then obviously delve deeper into these. Number one is, if you're interested in property, and as obvious as it may sound, I'm going to be Captain Obvious today, is you need to learn about property and property investing. And there's plenty of resources out there for you to learn. The second thing you ought to do is then you need to research the different investment strategies when it comes into property. We've shared quite a few of those on different episodes, but there's again a lot of information out there. The third bit is research on different investment locations. So this could be in your local area, it could be further apart. I know certain people who only invest within a 5-mile radius. I know people who do a 30-mile radius. I personally do a 60-mile radius, so that kind of becomes my gold mine area where I'm looking to invest. And I know people who go from all the way down from say Cornwall all the way up to Edinburgh and further afield. So it just depends on what you're comfortable with, but look at different locations and see which one takes your fancy for different reasons. Then come up with an investment plan in terms of what you're looking to do, how much cash you need, the type of projects you want, how long they're going to take. And this doesn't need to be any, fancy work of art. It's just something to give you direction and something that you can share with other people when you're looking for people to invest in your project. Number 6, you want to secure funding and financing. Again, depending on your personal philosophy and belief, how are you going to get the money? Where's it going to come from? How much of the share of your property deal are you willing to give somebody else to get money from them? Is it bank funding? Is it crowdfunding? Is it peer-to-peer? So you need to think about these things. Number 7, then obviously you buy the property. And number 8 and 9 are either you spend money on the property, fix it up and sell it, or you keep it and you calculate the earnings, and then you can refinance or sell a share to another party, and then rinse and repeat. So those are your short steps for looking and getting into the world of property. Next week, what I'm going to share with you when Kieran's here is some more detail on the key steps you need to take to get from where you are today to getting your first property. So this is more research based. Next week we're going to go into more detail on these. And as every week, thank you very much for joining me on this show through whichever platform that you have done. The week's gone really quick, so make sure you reflect on your daily actions and make the best use of Ramzan. And inshallah, join me next week when Kieran will be here. Until then, take care. Assalamu alaikum.
You're listening to Salam Radio, and it's now time for